if you're in an intimate relationship,
Yeah.
not a working relationship, but an intimate relationship, I think that's, you have one of these questions, which is the good date question. What can you learn from successful past relationships versus what can you learn from frustrating past relationships? I think that's kind of interesting to ask in intimacy
Exactly.
as well. Like, what was the part of your previous relationship that really was great? And maybe you don't need to go into these details of like
Not
sexual
all of it.
intimacy.
Yeah, exactly.
But what was
too much information?
Maybe that you were able to communicate effectively, or you guys had calm, resolution when there was conflict, or what are the things that you enjoyed that worked really well, and what were things that didn't work well? And I think you get a better frame of mind and understanding around, okay, how do we create our own agreement? What are our own boundaries, our agreements into our working or intimate relationship?
So I've been with my wife for 30 years. Met in
how'd you fool her?
I know. she was dazed and confused. But we had both arrived in England to study, and we had both left pretty bad relationships behind. She was going through a divorce. I'd made a mess of the previous relationship I had, in part because she was in Australia and I was going to Oxford, and it was all getting complicated. And we ended up sitting next to each other on a bus from Oxford to Stratford-upon-Avon to go see some Shakespeare play. And it's a long and windy road, and we'd been dating like maybe 2 or 3 dates. It was really, really early on. And we just somehow fell into this conversation about what are we up for? Like, I was 25, she was 36. So we were kind of old enough to go, we want to figure this out. We're like, we're not kids anymore.
Right.
We've got a bit of experience. Let's actually try and do this. So we actually had this conversation. It was like amazing and excruciating at the same time,
Really?
Not least because we're in the back of a bus and we're both feeling car sick and maybe other things as well. But we're like, this is what I've learned from my past relationships. Like I was saying, look, here's what I've learned from the relationships that I've screwed up. I have a way of disappearing into my own head and taking that other person for granted. And she's like, great, because I will kill you if that happens. And I'm like, that's really helpful to understand. She's like, that just won't happen on my watch. And that is true. Very hard to pull that off with Marcella. But we before we had any of this structure, before I'd figured any of this out, I just kind of got lucky or maybe desperate because I really fancied her. And I'm like, I don't want to screw this one up. I screwed up the last few. I want this to be great. We actually had this conversation kind of tapping into the good date and the bad date questions that you're talking about, which is like, what can we learn from the past? Because both for the good and the bad dates, those patterns will repeat. They'll keep showing up again in the future. So why don't you be explicit about it with each other so that you can navigate around it, so you can know where the hot spots are going to be, so you can give yourself the best preparation to say, this is how we can recover from this. This is how we'll repair this.
What do you think would be the 3 questions based on your personal experience and based on everything you've researched and taught in the coaching habit, but also how to work with anyone? What would be the 3 questions that every person should ask their partner before getting married to try to set themselves up for a conscious, loving relationship, knowing that there's going to be, ups and downs in life? But set yourself up for the best possible relationship.
Well, I'm going to take one of the questions from the book, which is the fifth and final question, which is, how will we fix it when things go wrong? The repair question.
That's great.
And, I just acknowledge all the work of the great people like Esther Perel and Terry Real and John Gottman and Dan Siegel, these kind of giants in the world of intimate relationships who really studied this for years. And as I was writing this book and kind of re-immersing myself in all of their material again, 2 things became really clear. The relationships that last are the ones that get repaired. And most of us are not very good at repairing relationships. Most of us, we break far easier than we think. We're like, oh, I feel a bit broken, a bit betrayed, a bit let down. And so many of us either do fight or flight or what's the other one?
Flee.
Terry Real.
Freeze. Yeah.
Terry Real said it was freeze and flee are 2 options. But the third one that he suggests, which I really like, is fix.
Fight,
flight, or
fix.
fix.
Interesting.
Which is kind of moving into rescuer mode.
Right.
Like if you know the drama triangle, which is comes from a psychologist called Stephen Karpman. He's like, when relationships get dysfunctional, 3 roles play out. There's the victim, there's the persecutor, and there's the rescuer. And they're all equally dysfunctional. Rescuer sounds better than victim and persecutor. It's just as screwed up as the other two.
It is, yeah.
And they're all reactive ways of behaving, and they keep the relationship stuck in dysfunction.
Wow.
And in fight and flight and fix, you actually have the brain description of those 3 roles. So I reckon,
interesting,
because when you're like in the first 2 years of marriage, really, and all the years leading up to it, it's like, this is amazing. She's amazing. I'm amazing. We're amazing. This is any kind of hiccups. They're like minor stuff that we get over that because everything else is going on for us. It's fantastic. But after 2 years, it's like, okay, the veil drops a little bit. You kind of get clear on other things, and it will go off the rails somewhere. You know, it might be an explosion. It might be a dent or a crack or a bend or something, but something will happen. So I would say, I wish I'd asked this question because I didn't. How will we fix it when things go wrong? How will we fight? You know, how will we fight in a way that will not break us, but will kind of be a source of learning and growth and clearing and kind of resetting?
Yeah. I think my friend Jay Shetty talked about this in his recent book,
right?
Where it was about, the success of a relationship is in how well you fight,
right?
And how successful you can fight together.
I think so. Yeah.
And not hurt each other too far beyond repair, which is the repair question.
Yeah.
How will you fix it when things go wrong? And I think it's, death by 1,000 paper cuts. Like the more you hurt someone little by little, it's just like, I just don't care anymore.
Yeah.
If you don't learn to repair it. I think that's key in intimate relationships, family relationships, friendships, career, is like repairing these things when you maybe feel like there was something that wasn't good. But I think the challenge is asking this repair question: how will you fix it when things go wrong? It might be easy to say, when things go wrong, I'm going to be fine, and I'm going to apologize, and I'm going to do all these things.
Yeah.
But then when that time comes 2 years later,
you're
like, screw you, and this
exactly.
you're horrible, and I'm not talking to you for a week.
But here's
you
the magic.
may not remember what you said.
You probably won't. But that's not the magic of that question. The magic of that question is it says things will go wrong.
Yeah.
It's an acknowledgement that the honeymoon moment is going to pass, and that things will get hard, and you get a chance to revisit it. So I think getting people's best guesses about how they're going to fix it when they go wrong, that's helpful. And if they can pull some of that off, then everybody benefits. But it does, what I think is the real hidden power of that question is it says it will go wrong, and we're acknowledging that now. And when we say how will we fix it when things go wrong, we're acknowledging a shared commitment to wanting to fix it. And when it does go wrong, it's something that you can say is going wrong.
Right.
We can actually talk about it going wrong because it's been raised before.
Yeah.
And I think it's that permission and shared commitment that actually can be part of the real magic of that question.
Yeah, and maybe you can say, like, it's not going wrong, we're just not in alignment, or something is off, or whatever might be happening. And I think this is one of the reasons why I really love hearing stories about world-class athletes, Navy SEALs, MMA fighters,
right?
Because they talk about preparing for challenging situations and how am I going to get out of the challenging situation. Usually as an athlete, it's more of a solo sport or a team sport, but the MMA fighter doesn't just train standing on his feet, punching when he's healthy,
right,
and in the best position. He trains upside down,
right,
with his neck against the cage, with one arm behind his back, getting punched in the face over and over again.
Solve this.
Saying, how do I get out of this?
Right, exactly.
It doesn't say, I'll be fine, I'll never be in this situation. And it's like same thing with Navy SEALs. They train for, okay, here's the mission, and here's the best case scenarios. Like, this is the plan.
Yeah.
But what is the backup plan when everything goes wrong?
Right.
When this person gets hurt, when this doesn't work out, then what do we do? And I think when we prepare and acknowledge something's going to go wrong. We're not going to go 100% according to plan in intimacy, in career, in relationships. What can I do and take ownership of to be responsible for my part? And how can I get back into alignment? And I think that's a powerful thing with this question, the repair question.
Yeah, to your point, there's that quote, maybe from the SEALs. I know James Clear tinkered with it as well, which is like, we don't rise to the occasion. We fall to the level of our training or the level of our systems.
The level of our habits. Or, yeah.
So kind of there's variations on it, but it's like you prepare for the mess of it. But for me, just the permission, like I didn't have this conversation with my wife, and I kind of wish I had, because we don't really have blow up fights. We have kind of separating moments where I'm like, I get into my own head, I take her for granted, we do that. And I'm like, how do we fix that when that's happening?
Yes.
And that would have been a healthier conversation. We figured this out, but that would have been a healthier conversation earlier if we could have got to that.
Sure.
What question would you add? Like, I've given one question, but what's the question that's at your heart in terms of setting up intimate relationships for success?
I'm just trying to think about all the things that I did with Martha, my girlfriend, which is essentially the opposite of everything I've ever done before. The thing, and listen, we're 2 years in, so I'm not 30-year marriage, so I'm sharing that information, because people might say, well, wait till 5 years, wait till 10 years, all these things. But the thing that really made me say, oh, this is my partner, right? And I can really feel safe, emotionally, spiritually, physically safe with this person. Is early on I said, listen, I've made a lot of mistakes in my past relationships, and none of my past relationships have worked. But in each one of them, I wanted to do therapy when they weren't working.
Right.
And the partners that I chose never wanted to do therapy with me.
Right.
They were resistant. It took 1.5 years, 2 years of like it not working and me saying, hey, can we do this and find support?
Yeah.
And they never wanted to do it. And I said, listen, this isn't really an ultimatum, but I want to feel emotionally safe. Would you be open to going to therapy in the beginning of the relationship? Not when things have problems in the future, but can we go together now?
Yeah.
She was like, 100%. That'd be amazing. I'm down for whatever. She was like, I've always wanted to do that too.
Yeah.
I felt like, oh, okay, just her acknowledging that.
Yeah.
And then us doing it has been a beautiful foundational process of a safe space to talk about maybe touchy or uncomfortable conversations, to create boundaries, agreements, and commitments, which has not, removed all friction or conflict, but has removed a lot of it and given us a lot more grace and flexibility and freedom to have courage to communicate when there's something that didn't feel right. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
And that was a beautiful thing, just asking that question. So I don't know what that question is. It's not the therapy question, but it's more like, hey, are you open to having outside support and having these conversations?
Yeah, it's really powerful.
And so for me, that was a beautiful conversation.
Well, the question it relates to in the book is the bad day question.
The bad day
question. Which is like, what can we learn from frustrating past relationships? And it's like, and these are my words, not yours, Lewis, but it's like, when the relationship was hard, I didn't feel like I had the support I needed, and I didn't feel the other person was as committed to repair or fixing it than I was. And that's what I really want in this. And there's a definition of like an adult to adult relationship. An adult to adult relationship is being able to ask for what you want, knowing that the answer might be no. You don't always get what you want, but being able to ask for what you want is a really rare thing and a really powerful thing. And it just feels like from your story, it's like what I've learned is I've figured out what I want, and I've got the courage to ask for what I want, and that's made all the difference.
And the courage to walk away. The steady question, what are your practices and preferences? I was very clear with her in the beginning of us dating, and really in the first couple days of meeting each other. I said, this is who I am.
Right.
This is my vision. This is where I'm heading.
Yeah.
This is what I will be doing, and this is what I will not be doing.
Yeah.
and I will not be living this type of relationship or this type of life.
Yeah.
If you want to put me into some stereotypical box of certain relationships, that's not me.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I'm going to be, out of alignment with a monogamous relationship, but I'm a driven human being.
Yeah.
I'm running this business. I've got a vision that is going to take a certain amount of energy and effort.
Right.
And she asked me a question early on, which essentially is, what are your preferences questions? She said, what are your priorities?
Yeah.
And I had never had the courage before to
fully
be
own
honest
that.
with my priorities.
Yeah.
Now, this may evolve over time and anything else, but I said, listen, no woman wants to hear what I'm going to tell you. Are you sure you want the answer?
Right.
You sure you want the truth? Right? It's kind of like my Tom Cruise moment. You can't handle the truth, right? And I said, are you sure you want me to tell you the truth? She said, yes.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't think you're going to want to hang out with me after you hear this.
Right.
Because no one in the past was able to handle it, was able to receive it.
Right.
And so she said, yes. And I said, okay, well, it's been good knowing you, but here are my priorities.
Good for you.
I said
a brave moment.
Right. And I was like, but I wasn't willing to abandon myself anymore, which is what I had always done. I'd abandoned to make someone else feel okay or safe or secure or whatever, as opposed to just, this is who I am. And maybe that means we're not the right fit for each other.
Right.
We're not the right match for this type of relationship.
But let me show you my cards.
Yeah.
And let's see how this goes.
But I always lacked that emotional courage because I was afraid of hurting people.
Right.
And I said, my priorities, my number one priority is my health. And no woman wants to hear that they're not the number one priority in a relationship with an intimate partner, really.
Yeah.
They don't like that. Most of them, at least. And I said, my number two priority is not you or the relationship either. And no one wants to hear they're not number one or number two.
Right.
Please, number two.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. At least give me a silver medal, man.
Exactly. No, and I said, my intimate relationship will be my third priority. Now, let me give context, because I need my health to be a top priority so that I have more energy, focus, and value to you and to my second priority.
It's that kind of foundational thing that allows everything else to be built, relationships and business.
And to my second priority, which is my vision, my mission to serve people.
Yeah.
And if you hold me back from my health and I feel unhealthy, I'm not going to be good for you. If you hold me back from my purpose and you try to deter me from that, I'm going to be resentful, frustrated, like antsy. But if you are in alignment that these are my top two priorities, you're going to feel like the number one priority.
Well, that's nice.
And so it's creating that context and conversation, just setting the stage and just being like, you can never pull me away from these things unless there's some emergency or whatever, but it can't be this, I don't want you going to the gym. I don't want you working on your mission. I don't want you. I need you here with me more. And I was like, I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
Maybe in 10 years, that'll change, and I will be. But right now, I'm not.
What was the work you did that allowed you now to ask for what you want and be as clear as that?
I needed to heal a lot of my inner child wounds.
Right.
Really. And have a different relationship with my younger psychological self that never got to hear or be validated the way that I needed to validate it, and never got to heal or mend painful memories. So it wasn't until I was able to mend the memories of the past and create new meaning around them.
Yeah.
And create a sense of connection in an intimate relationship with my painful wounds of repair. That's when I was like, okay, I am safe. I am free. I am peaceful as I am. I don't need to please you to feel loved and accepted and free. And I was able to say, okay, I'm happy alone if this relationship doesn't work.
Yeah.
But I'm never going to abandon myself again. So that was a big part of it, having that healing journey and doing the therapeutic work on that.
You can go, Michael, stop interviewing me and don't ask me about my partner. But I'm curious to know if you were able to ask her what she wanted, like what her priorities were.
Yeah, I asked her, really, really early on.
Yeah.
And she, this conversation where she asked me about my priorities, she was like, I was like, what do you want? What's your vision? And what's your vision for intimate relationship, a committed relationship long-term? I've said this on the show before a few times, but I was like, she said, well, I want to be married and have kids. And that's something that I want and I value. I said, okay, cool. I value that as well, but I can't tell you that in the first couple of weeks that that's going to happen with us. So I need to feel safe. I need to feel time, a foundation. So if you're cool with that, knowing that maybe,
It's a maybe, yeah.
but everything has to work out for me to feel like a yes.
Yeah.
I can't commit right now.
Who you are in this world and what success is to you in the world, that's shifted and shifts for everybody. So I love having a range of different questions because, there are some times where if I'm sitting at a dinner party and I'm like, what's the burden it's finally time to put down? The person's like, who am I sitting next to? I